Welcome to this meeting of Assembly Committee on Education for the 2023 legislative session. Secretary, will you please call the roll?
Assemblywoman Anderson.
Present.
Assemblyman De Silva.
Here.
Assemblywoman Hanson.
Here.
Assemblywoman Hardy.
Here.
Assemblyman Koenig.
Here.
Assemblywoman LaRue Hatch. Assemblyman MacArthur.
Here.
Assemblywoman Mosca.
Here.
Assemblywoman Taylor.
Present.
Assemblywoman Thomas.
Here.
Assemblywoman Torres.
Here.
Chair Bilbray Axelrod.
I am here, and all members are here, so we do have a quorum. Welcome to everyone who is here in the Carson City, and to the folks who are in Las Vegas, and anyone viewing online or through our YouTube channel. Please remember to put down the volume of your device. I was just on a Zoom, so I'm turning mine down. So anything that makes noise, just go ahead and turn that to the vibration mode. If you wish to testify, please sign in at the table by the door and provide a business card to the committee secretary. When testifying, please turn on your microphone, clearly state and spell your name, any affiliation for the record, then turn off your microphone when you're done speaking. We do ask that you bring handouts of anything that you will be referencing, and we should have those items uploaded to Nellis, so we ask that you could get them to our committee manager by 12:30 yesterday, so 24 hours before we meet. We expect courtesy and respect in our interactions during our meetings. We don't always agree, and that's okay, but we can still be nice to each other. Committee members will be using their laptops to view handouts and other documents. Please don't view this as a sign of disrespect or inattention. Finally, please note, we are in deadline time, so we are going to be limiting testimony to 20-minute windows. I probably shouldn't be a problem, but just in case. So 20 minutes in opposition, 20 minutes in support, 20 minutes in opposition, 20 minutes in neutral. With that, let's get started. We're going to hear three bills. We'll take the bills in the order of the agenda, which is Assembly Bill 372, then Assembly Bill 279, and finally Assembly Bill 323. I'll be presenting Bill AB 372, so I'll turn over the gavel to the vice chair. You can just stay there if you want. Yeah. Yeah, there you go. Okay, so I'm going to move down, and if you just give me a...
Okay. We will begin again once our chair gets into position to present Assembly Bill 372.
And I have a presenter in...
Oh, yes, you do. You have a presenter, Dr. Sandra Cosgrove. Okay, I'm now going to open the hearing on Assembly Bill 372. This measure revises provisions related to higher education. And to present this measure, we have our chair, Assemblywoman Bilbray Axelrod, and she will be joined by Dr. Sandra Cosgrove. So please, Madam Chair, begin whenever you are ready. I can filibuster a little bit. So we'll talk amongst ourselves. We're working on the temperature in the room. We know it's very cold.
Did Richard get a blanket?
Well, that is my job as vice chair. Blankets, did you get one? MacArthur, you got...
I don't have one yet.
He doesn't ask questions, so he doesn't get one.
All right, our chair, and just in the nick of time, is get ready to begin. So please begin whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair and committee, most excellent committee in education. For the record, I'm Assemblywoman Shannon Bilbray Axelrod, representing Assembly District 34 in Clark County. I will be the only one sitting here, so I'm not going to identify myself every time because you guys got it. It's me, Shannon Bilbray Axelrod. I will be presenting with my amazing friend and just amazing all-around person, Dr. Sandra Cosgrove. And she'll sort of speak to the need of this bill. But what I wanted to say is kind of how this bill came to be. Dr. Cosgrove, in her infinite wisdom, she's always, bringing groups of stakeholders together to talk about how we can do better, both in our advocacy and in really setting kids up for success. The last 11 years, I have had the extreme pleasure of serving as board president for a nonprofit called Family to Family Connection. Family Connection initially was the brainchild of Sandy Miller when she was First Lady under Governor Miller back in 1998. And like so many things with dealing with early childhood, she was a little bit ahead of her time. So she was really talking about the importance of early childhood and really being your parents or whoever it is. It doesn't have to be a parent. Families look different. Being your child's first teacher. So you getting a child ready for school does not mean getting them a backpack and getting all their school clothes together. Getting a child ready for school starts the day you bring that child home, or if you have your child at home, into the other room. Family to Family Connection started, it was throughout the whole state, and unfortunately during the recession in 2008, it lost its funding. One lonely Family to Family Connection still survives, and that was due to the board and our executive director. We started fundraising years and years ago. We do an event called Touch a Truck, so it's managed to keep our doors open. They operate on a shoestring budget, but what the idea is they're free family engagement classes. We currently operate out of I can't think of the name. I just drew a blank. Anyways, the recreation center right by UNLV. It's Cambridge. Thank you, Cambridge. And so we offer free classes to 0 to 5. And not only do parents, not feel so alone when they have their babies, but we have educators there who you'll speak to later, who show parents really how to engage with their kids. And I'm going to keep using the term parents, and I apologize because parents could mean a lot of things. That could mean abuela, that could be the person who watches your child, after school till you get home while you work. So we know that looks very different in a lot of different ways, but whoever that person is that's providing that care to your child has to fill in that role as well. So, this happened because, like I said, Dr. Sandra Cosgrove put this group together, and we sort of just, with a bunch of people, and Dr. Cosgrove will talk about it, we sort of talked about where could we make sure that our vision comes to reality, because so many times a bill is here, and a bill is in revenue, and a bill is in government affairs, and this one goes forward, but these two don't, so what you were trying to do here isn't going to work because these two didn't happen as well. So perfect example for this, we started talking about a vessel that we thought was important, and it's AB 113. It's through the governor's office and early childhood system. So initially we thought that would probably come to education. Well, it didn't. It went to government affairs. So I'll leave it at that. You guys can pull up 113, and I know Dr. Cosgrove will do an amazing job telling you what that working group came up with and why we have the bill here today. So I'll turn it over to you, Dr. Cosgrove.
All right, thank you so much. Again, my name is Dr. Sandra Cosgrove, SONDRACOSGROVE. I'm a history professor at the College of Southern Nevada and executive director of Vote Nevada. And today I'm speaking on my own behalf, not my employer, and I support AB 372. And just for the record, it is April in Vegas and I'm freezing too. But we're going to keep going on. As the Assemblywoman said, there's been a bunch of us who've been trying to get together to talk about mainly what's happening to the pandemic cohort that's coming out of our school systems and coming over to our community colleges and our universities, the problems we're having with school violence, just some of the issues that I know you all are very aware of. So I want to kind of explain to you where we think there is a connection between the university system, NSHE, and the folks that are doing good work when it comes to early childhood learning. I work in the space that connects the mission of Nevada's higher education institutions with nonprofit policy development. In this space, you'll often see me advocating for things like better behavioral health system, because my students not only need access to affordable higher education and training, but also to a high-quality social service system that keeps them healthy and supported. And my students learn about voting and civic engagement because we have a strong historical tradition in both areas, but also because students need to learn to advocate for themselves while promoting sound policy changes and choices. Regarding this bill, while it may seem that there's no connection between a strong early learning policy and higher education, that's not the case. When students arrive at college, we expect that their brains have had access to enriching experiences that facilitate development in ways that make them ready to learn the skills that are needed to be successful citizens and productive workers. But what if that has not happened? Higher education is currently not funded to address developmental delays, so students are dropping out not because they aren't a good fit for college, but because they need help acquiring the life skills they missed somewhere along the way as they were becoming young adults. So where does this bill fit in? So this bill addresses a root cause of this problem. Nevada needs a robust early learning ecosystem that empowers parents to focus on brain development at the beginning of a child's life with an array of resources and support from higher education. Having this process in a bill highlights the need for more partnerships to help children, and it informs faculty that we can use our community service requirements, our research requirements that we have in our contracts to contribute to building an early learning system that will send us students who are already ready for college from day one. And so I see this bill as being a way to say there needs to be a web out there, and we need to make sure that parents can connect to that web, and they can find not only somebody that's probably a specialist in early learning, but also connect to our higher education system that has all kinds of resources that can help that nonprofit group and that can help those parents. And so today, again, I am here in support of AB 372, and I thank the Assemblywoman.
Thank you, Dr. Cosgrove. And now I'll give you an overview of the bill. First, it authorizes the Board of Regents to enter into an agreement with a nonprofit organization, community entity, or governmental agency to jointly provide families and caretakers with training workshops and resources designed to facilitate family involvement in early childhood education. The bill further outlines provisions relating to such agreements, including the standards that must be met by the organization, entity, or agency, and the allocation of any shared costs. With that, I am open to answering questions.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and Dr. Cosgrove. Looking to see if we have anyone with any questions. I will begin. So, in an ideal way, Madam Chair, how does this look? How will this look in practicality?
Thank you for that question. So, and I'm going to stick to something I know. We kind of, family to family, kind of started doing this, even though, you know, how this kind of NRS sometimes has to catch up with things that have already been going on. My daughter was lucky enough to go to the UNLV preschool, and I don't know if any of you are familiar with the UNLV preschool, but it is literally one of the best preschools that I've ever seen. They really do get they click all the boxes. But one thing that they were missing is the family engagement aspect. And so they recently went to the feds and received a grant to have more kids in at UNLV preschool who were specifically in the cohort, the teaching cohort, who had children. But one of the specifics of it is that they had to have this family engagement. Well, they came to family and said, this isn't what we do. So now we're working with the students at UNLV to learn that aspect. So not only are the children going to preschool, but the parents are also, or the caregiver, whoever's in college, is actually coming and learning that real-time family engagement aspect. So that's one option. Dr. Cosgrove, I know you have some other examples as well.
Yes, thank you. This is Sandra Cosgrove for the record. So I can tell you as a faculty member, each year I get evaluated, and part of my evaluation for being a community college faculty member is community service. And so that's oftentimes why you see me out and about in the community, because I really enjoy it, but it's actually a contractual obligation that I have. Every faculty member has that. At the university, they have research requirements too. And so when you're a faculty member and you're thinking about, well, this is a contractual obligation that I have, what would I like to do that will meet this requirement, that will get, most bang for the buck, that is really going to be enriching? This bill will help faculty understand that we can reach out to family to family or other groups and say, can I help you? Can I volunteer? And it might then lead to a contractual agreement. But if nothing else, let faculty know that we can meet our contractual obligation for community service by helping organizations that are helping families.
Thank you to you both. That seemed to make a lot of sense. We do have a couple of other questions. I'm going to first I'll go to Assemblywoman Mosca and then to Assemblyman Koenig.
Thank you, Vice Chair, and thank you for this. Just a quick one, because I know the first line says the Board of Regents may enter into an agreement. So right now, are they not able to enter into one?
And I'm going to do it. Shannon Bilbray Axelrod for the record. No, and like I said, we're just trying to codify this into and also, as Dr. Cosgrove said, when you have it in an NRS too, it's very clear once again to faculty and on and I know I keep using family to family connection, but that's the one I'm most familiar with. We have several lawyers on our board, and so they would be like, "Are you sure we're allowed to do this?" So just having that codified is just a little bit more helpful.
Thank you, Assemblywoman. Assemblyman Koenig and then Assemblywoman Anderson.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. So my question is in section 1.2a, where it talks about standards that must be met. Who sets those standards? Do we have any idea what those standards could be? To me, just the word standards, it could be a little bit vague.
I'm going to phone a friend because I don't think we laid that up, but so please, if that's okay, Vice Chair.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Asher Killian, Committee Counsel. So as the bill is written, since this is an agreement between the Board of Regents and the other entity, those standards would be set as part of the agreement. So they'd be mutually decided upon between the regents and the entity that's carrying out the program.
Thank you, Assemblywoman Anderson, and thank you, Council.
Thank you, Vice Chair, and thank you for the presentation. My question is very similar, actually, and it has to do with, in the agreement, will there ever be an expectation for reporting out of how the funds were utilized and/or, the allocation of any cost? Will there ever be, though, any sort of reporting out? But I think based upon Council's answer that would be part of the agreement, but just wanted to make sure that was in fact accurate.
I would say that I would think that would stand up to what our council said, but then I also would bring up the UNLV preschool example, that it's a federal grant, so there is a lot of information that is requested back. And so I guess it really matters on the scope. Dr. Cosgrove made a reference of, even a faculty member, making their services available or helping with, and we've had UNLV students and Toro students come and help us do intake forms and stuff, because we want to see that too, right? That's one thing that we've talked about a lot I've actually been on the board for 14 years, just president for 11, but over the last 14 years is really watching and coming back and seeing those students who came through family to family when they were 1 and 2 and 3 years old and still coming back, and they're thriving. They're doing, and so, you have those anecdotal things, but it's so wonderful to actually see those real metrics. So I'm all over that, and so I would say it would definitely be encouraged, especially if you want to keep those partnerships going.
Yes, please, go ahead.
Thank you. And based upon that answer, which, great answer, because I agree with you, it's all about the metrics, would there also be an expectation of a disclosure if somebody actually has a family member or they are also involved in something that is bringing up an agreement? Let's say with your board, and they decide to enter into an agreement of somebody else that is with UNLV in some way. Would there be an expectation to be able to disclose that during the discussions, or am I making sense when I'm asking?
I didn't really understand. To be honest.
So let's just say that you enter in an agreement and your husband owns a company that that agreement is with. Would that private board be expected to do that disclosure, that sort of idea?
Thank you for the question. So this is all nonprofit work. So everything would be a nonprofit. There would not be an opportunity to enter into agreements with a for-profit company. That is not the intent of the bill at all. Just the people who are out there doing good work and being able to level that up.
Thank you very much. Any other questions, committee members? Okay, if it's a good, it must be the free hot dogs out there that got you a pass. Assemblywoman Torres, they were free? Yeah, sorry, that's on the record, sorry. Sorry. But we
You
will,
had to have a coupon.
you did have to, which they sent us. They're in the recycle bin. Okay, so next we do want to hear any testimony on Assembly Bill 372, and we're going to start with support. I don't think this will be an issue, but the chair has already outlined that we'll have 20 minutes of support, 20 minutes of opposition, and 20 minutes of neutral if necessary on those. But for those who are coming, and if there's anyone in Vegas, thank you so much for coming forward to be in position. We'll start here in Reno, and then we'll jump to Vegas. Please state your name. You know the routine. I mean in Carson. What's close to Reno? It's closer than Vegas. Please go ahead.
Thank you, and good afternoon, Madam Vice Chair and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Trevor Parrish, that's P-A-R-R-I-S-H, and I'm the Manager of Government Affairs over at the Vegas Chamber. The Chamber is in support of AB 372. Studies have shown that early education is a vital component to youth development, and the quality of that education will have implications throughout their childhood and well into the rest of their lives. Giving parents every opportunity to learn the information they need to ensure their children are being effectively educated is crucially important. Because of these reasons, we urge your support of AB 372. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Parrish.
Good afternoon, Madam Vice Chair, members of the committee. For the record, Alejandro Rodriguez, Director of Government Relations for the Nevada System of Higher Education, and she would like to go on the record in support of AB 372. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rodriguez. Seeing no one here in Carson, no one else here, then we'll go to Las Vegas. Please, we had two, we lost one, but oh no, they're two, they're there. Okay, just whichever one would like to go first, just go ahead and turn your mic on and then state your name and spell it, please, for the record.
Yes, my name is Jennifer Fox. Oh, thank you, Vice Chair Taylor. My name is Jennifer Fox, that's Jennifer-Fox, and I serve as the Executive Director for Family to Family Connection, and I am here in support of Assembly Bill 372, which focuses on early childhood education. As Assemblywoman Bilberry Axelrod indicated, we currently have plans with UNLV to work together to provide family engagement programming to their families that are receiving preschool subsidies. Within my work every day, I see that the effects of this early childhood education and development on children, and I do urge you all to vote in favor of this bill, and thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you, Ms. Fox. We'll go to our next testifier there. Please go ahead and state your name when you're ready.
My name is Raminya Ingram, R-A-M-I-N-Y-A-H. Ingram, I-N-G-R-A-M. Peace, blessings, and good afternoon. I am currently serving as the Director of Operations and Community Relations for Donna Street Community Center and Taking Back the Block Foundation 501c3. And I'm here to express our support for Assembly Bill 372. Our organization strongly believes in the importance of early childhood learning, and we have seen firsthand the positive impact it can have on a child's future. As part of our commitment to early childhood education, we have developed a hip-hop entrepreneurship program that targets high school students, providing them with the necessary skills and tools to succeed in the future. Through this program, students learn about entrepreneurship, financial leadership, and financial literacy and leadership, which are all essential skills for success in the 21st century. However, we believe that this type of education should not start in high school. The Nevada Assembly Bill 372 seeks to establish a comprehensive, coordinated, and integrated system of early childhood care, and education in Nevada, aimed at improving the quality and accessibility of these services for families with young children. This bill recognizes that early childhood is a critical period for learning and development and seeks to provide a foundation for children to succeed academically, socially, and emotionally. This includes provisions for workforce development, parent and family engagement, and data collection and evaluation to continuously improve the early childhood system in the state. What this means to everyday law-abiding citizens is that the Nevada Assembly Bill 372 wants to make sure that all children in Nevada have a chance to go to school and learn when they are very young, even before they start kindergarten. It wants to help families who may not have a lot of money or who live far away from good schools so that every child can have a good start in life. By investing in early childhood education, we can provide our children with a strong foundation for their future success. Programs like the Hip Hop Entrepreneurship Program can be adapted for younger children, teaching them important life skills at an early age. Currently, California has the Early Learning and Care for All Act, which seeks to provide universal preschools for all 4-year-olds in the state. Oregon currently has the Early Learning Equity Act, which aims to ensure access to high-quality early childhood education for all children, with a focus on those who have been historically underserved. Massachusetts has the Early Education and Care Workforce Council Act, which establishes a council to support and develop the early childhood education workforce in the state. We urge you to support AB 372 and prioritize early childhood education in our state. By doing so, we can ensure that our children have the tools they need to thrive in today's rapidly changing world. Peace, blessings, and thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ingram. Is there anyone else there in Las Vegas who would like to testify in support? Seeing none? Okay, then BPS, we'll go to the phone lines. Is there anyone on the phone line who would like to testify in support of Assembly Bill 372?
Callers, if you would like to testify in support of AB 372, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. One moment, Vice Chair.
Thank you, BPS.
Caller with the last 3 digits, 727. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon, all. My name is Ariel Williams, spelled Ariel, A-A-R-I-E-L, Williams, and I'm testifying today on my personal capacity, calling to testify in support of AB 372, and thank Assemblywoman Bilbray Axelrod and Dr. Cosgrove for bringing this bill. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Next caller.
Chair, there are no more callers choosing to provide support testimony at this time.
Okay, thank you very much. Now we will go to if there's any opposition. Anyone here in Carson City who would testify in opposition to Assembly Bill 372. Please come forward at this time. Okay, seeing none, we'll go to Las Vegas. Anyone in Las Vegas to testify in opposition to Assembly Bill 372? Okay, seeing none there. BPS, we'll go to the phone lines, see if we have any opposition testimony.
Callers, if you would like to testify in opposition to AB 372, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Vice Chair, there are no callers choosing to provide opposition testimony at this time.
Okay, thank you so much, BPS. And now we'll go to neutral testimony. Is there anyone here in Carson City who would like to testify neutral to Assembly Bill 372? Okay, seeing none in Las Vegas? Seeing no one come forward to testify neutral on AB 372? And then one last check to the phone lines. BPS, anyone on the phone line who would wish to testify neutral to Assembly Bill 372?
Callers, if you would like to testify in neutral for AB 372, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Vice Chair, there are no callers choosing to provide neutral testimony at this time.
Okay, thank you, BPS. Madam Chair, we'll go to you for any closing remarks.
Well, thank you very much, most excellent committee, for hearing this. And, you know, there's been a lot of talk about early childhood, and that's fantastic, and universal preschool. And as I mentioned, this family came about in 1998 and was a little ahead of her time. We didn't even have mandatory all-day kindergarten at that time, which didn't happen till the mid, I think, what was it, 2011? So thank you for considering this. As I said, families look a lot of different ways. But, you know, the bottom line is that we need to give every child out there, the best opportunity to be successful in their lives. And when they're successful in their lives, then we all can take a sigh of relief, because we know that Nevada is just going to be that much better for us and them. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. Okay, I will now close the hearing on Assembly Bill 372 and will turn the gavel back over to the chair of the most excellent committee on education, and we'll go to our next bill hearing.
I will now open the hearing on AB 279. This measure revises provisions governing a waiver of tuition and registration and certain fees for students who are children of certain veterans. To present this measure, we have Assemblyman De Silva, who has two co-presenters that I believe you will introduce. So go ahead when you're ready.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I actually have three. I have Ross Bryant, too, who should be in Las Vegas.
I apologize, I didn't look up.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. For the record, I am Assemblyman Ruben De Silva, representing Assembly District 28 in Clark County. I am presenting Assembly Bill 279, which seeks to create a tuition waiver for the children of Purple Heart recipients. So what is the Purple Heart? The Purple Heart is America's oldest military decoration. It stems from the Badge of Military Merit, which was announced by General George Washington in April of 1782, more than 240 years ago. The Purple Heart is bestowed for the following reason: being wounded or killed in any action against any enemy of the United States or as a result of an act of any such enemy or opposing armed forces. And that right there is a direct quote from the Department of Defense. Simply put, this bill seeks to create a tuition waiver for the children of veterans who have sacrificed considerably for this country. To me personally, that should be enough. But there are more reasons why we need to create this kind of a benefit. And I will touch on three, and then my co-presenters will dig even deeper into the reasons why we're specifically looking at extending, at this time in our history, veterans' benefits to the family members of veterans. So one of the reasons why we want to extend this sort of a benefit to the children of Purple Heart recipients, combat wounded veterans, is because of the stresses that are being placed on these families. One, you can imagine taking care of a disabled veteran parent, and what the stresses might be just from that. And number two, PTS, the traumatic stress that is oftentimes affiliated with folks who have been through a combat situation. I mean, and mind you, the recipients of this medal have either been wounded in action or have been killed. Okay. Another important thing to consider here is the actual amounts and the percentages now of Americans who are serving in uniform. And I think this is very important to consider. And this is something that the veterans community, not just here in this state, but in this country at large, is really taking into consideration now, and vis-a-vis the actual the garnering of benefits now, not just for the veteran, but for the veterans' families. During World War II, okay, 11% of Americans served in uniform. 11%. During Vietnam, that number dropped down to 8%. This is significant, and we know that this is largely due to the draft. We had a draft in place at the time, And whether you liked it or not, if your number came up, I think as our distinguished colleague, Assemblyman MacArthur, and also our Mr. Lepelbit here remember from those days, you had to go serve. So there was just a larger amount of people serving in uniform at that time. This has changed dramatically in the modern era. To give you an example, during the years of the Iraq and Afghanistan wars, GWAT as it's called, the Global War on Terrorism, 1% of America's population has been serving and participating in this war. 1% has been fighting 100% of all the conflicts that we have been involved with. Okay, this is significant because we are seeing a tremendous amount of stress being placed on these families. You're all familiar with the story of a mother or a father who has to leave their child and go off to war. Go off to war, not just for one deployment or two deployments, but 3, 4, sometimes even 5. And this is something that's also very prevalent in our National Guard units and reserve units as well. Imagine, coming home to your family, and then all of a sudden being ordered to go back to the combat zone multiple times. And this is a reality for the actual families that participated in the global war on terrorism. Remember, this is an all-voluntary fighting force. This is not a draft-related combat recruitment effort. This is people sign up as volunteers. 1% of America's population fighting 100% of our wars. And then lastly, there is also significant evidence to show that a bill like this can actually boost recruitment and can even bring federal dollars into a university system. There's a provisions with the GI Bill that you're allowed to give that benefit if you do not utilize it to your children. And if we're able to actually add this ancillary state benefit, there's a lot of evidence out there to show that we could actually attract federal dollars following the children of these veterans to Nevada. So this is actually one tuition waiver, I believe, that'll actually bring more money into our state. There's a strong argument made for that. And now I just want to quickly review some of the specificities of this bill and then hand it over to my distinguished co-presenters here. This bill will waive tuition at all state-sponsored Nevada colleges and universities for the children of veterans who have been awarded the Purple Heart Medal. And number 2, there's a amendment there, I believe, in front of you, and this amendment does really enshrine now an age cap. The age cap will be 28 years or 10 years after the child begins utilizing the benefit. And that's really the premise of this bill. So at this time, I want to actually, I'll introduce my co-presenters and then turn it over to one of them. Here I have Mr. Andy Lepelbit. I do want to say that Andy, it's an honor to have Andy here. Andy is the most decorated veteran in Nevada. He has several Purple Hearts. He also has 2 Silver Stars and is a recipient of the Distinguished Service Cross, which is the second highest medal that we have in our nation, aside from the Medal of Honor, being the only medal that has an ascendancy on this man's decorations. And here we have Mr. Jose Quiroga, who is from NSHE. And we also have in Las Vegas Mr. Ross Bryant, who is the director of the UNLV Veteran Service Center. So we'll start with Andy.
I don't know who you were talking about. Chair, committee members, for the record, my name is Andrew Lepelbit, last name Lepeilbet, no more. And I am the chairman of the United Veterans Legislative Council for the state, representing the 279,000 veterans in our state. I was asked to make some comments as it related to our children and the Purple Heart for this bill. First of all, before I state that, I'll just add our UVLC testimony here. We are obviously highly in support of this bill for the United Veterans Legislative Council. Anyway, so my story is a story I've never told in public, ever. And maybe less than a handful. Even Ruben, who I've known for years, I've not told you this story either. So I'm going to give you an example of the impact to our children. I was wounded in Vietnam and paralyzed from the waist down. Paralyzed, not knowing what was going to happen. And you'll notice I walked in here today. I have a cane in my car. I try never to use it. But for 50 years, my children witnessed every now and then After the war, an ambulance would come and get Dad out of the house because of muscle spasms in my back and pain. That didn't happen a lot of times, but my children lived through that. My children watched the days. Now I'm doing actually much better at 77 than I was doing for decades right now. I'd be bent over like an old man with two canes moving around the house. In order to go to work all those decades, I would roll out of my bed on the floor and pull myself up the dresser and somehow get through getting dressed. Now, sometimes I couldn't even put my socks on. But the people I worked with generally didn't know it, didn't have a clue. I had sometimes I could not reject, I had to take the cane to work. So my children watched all this and suffered through watching their dad. I haven't had an ambulance have taken me out of the house in 10 years now, but my youngest daughter was there the last time and she was paralyzed with fear. I'm pretty strong. I wear the same size clothes I wore at 18. I fit in my 1967 dress blues. Very annoying to my wife. But my point is, our children are suffering through all these veterans. And the global war on terror veterans are really the ones that are the direct benefits of this bill that are Purple Heart recipients. There are very few Purple Heart recipients from the global war on terror in this state. I mean, I worked with General Berry and before him, General Hannafin, and we say, call us, because I'm the state chairman of the Purple Heart. We will come and present those medals with you. There were so few that we didn't get around to doing that. That doesn't lessen the thing that every single one of these children of these veterans are suffering with their parents. They just don't talk about it, ever. They just don't talk about it. That's a reason alone that we should support these bills and help these children get going. It's a big weight on their shoulders, a big weight. Thank you.
Next, we'll have Mr. Ross Bryant. I believe he's in Las Vegas.
Thank you, Assemblyman Ruben De Silva. My name is Ross Bryant, R-O-S-S-B-R-Y-A-N-T. I'm a Cold War veteran, Desert Storm era veteran, 24 years active duty, and the ROTC commander at UNLV when the planes hit the building. We commissioned 77 officers who are now majors and colonels in the Army. And I am in support of this bill, but I'd also like to give a little bit of background. I've been blessed to run the Military Veterans Services Center at UNLV since 2012. Over the last 10 years, we have served over 8,000 military-affiliated, mainly veterans from the global war on terror with their benefits, with over 60,000 certifications of federal dollars to UNLV and to NSHE. I would also like to add all the discussion about these kids. I saw an article that said the average time in combat in World War II was about 2.5 years for most combat vets. In Vietnam, it was on average about 18 months for draftees. That didn't mean that there weren't career folks that had multiple tours like our distinguished guest. But during this war, there's been over 4, 5, 6 years in combat for Marines and Army folks that are now going to school across NSHE schools. We have over 10,000 military-affiliated students attending. And they bring in quite a bit of money. In my office, I think last count was $25 million to UNLV from these various VA benefits. Now, when you talk about this Chapter 35, we have had more 100% disabled vets of this generation due to legislation to help veterans get their benefits than probably since World War II because of the volume of World War II. Every one of those folks that is 100% have a limited capacity of making future money for their family, and that is why the federal government has Chapter 35, which is basically a stipend for the children of disabled vets, including Purple Heart recipients, to come to UNLV, and they get $14.48 in a stipend to pay for everything. So it's not full funding. And I know asking for a grant waiver, that was too expensive. with the current budget and with NSHE and everything else, and I totally understand that. But supporting this Purple Heart bill would be a step in the right direction. Other states have full grant waivers, California, Florida, Virginia, and Texas. And so a lot of these families are going to go to those states. I hope they come to this state because we have great services to help them. And when this group here, these families are very resilient families after multiple deployments. So when you talk about retention rates and you talk about someone who's going to graduate and go to the distance, about 60% of these family members make it to graduation and go on to employment either in our state or throughout the nation. So I highly support this. I'm proud of Ruben, who is also a Purple Heart recipient, for his tenacity to serve as an assemblyman and present this bill. Thank you very much.
Jose Quiroga for the record, research analyst, Nevada System of Higher Education. Thank you, Madam Chair, and to the members of the committee for considering AB 279. My co-presenters have already articulated well the need for this bill and who it would serve. I will limit to a brief background on this bill. AB 279 builds on the current Purple Heart fee waiver, which, because it is limited to only Purple Heart recipients, it has only served between 1 to 2 students per year since inception in 2019. Although we don't yet know how many students it may attract into the system or who will benefit, were current students in NSHE, we expect that AB 279 will increase the population that will receive these fee waivers because it will expand it to the children of Purple Heart recipients. I also want to commend the language in the amendment introduced today because it begins to introduce consistency for dependent fee waiver recipients. And that is one area that we know as fee waivers have been introduced over the years. Sometimes there hasn't been that consistency. This would help introduce similar language as is currently in statute for POW, prisoners of war, and service members who are missing in action. They would be treated the same way for this Purple Heart bill. With that, thank you again to the chair, members of the committee, and to Assemblyman De Silva for working collaboratively on AB 279.
And with that, Madam Chair and committee will stand for questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for bringing folks out here to share your stories, and we really appreciate it. And it's not lost on me that only 1% of the population serves us. So thank you very, very much. I mean that from the bottom of my heart. So questions? Some Vice Chair Taylor, and then I have you. No, I didn't know if you had your finger. Okay, that's what I was questioning. So we'll start here, and then we'll move. She was grabbing water, her 64 ounces.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to my colleague, Assemblyman De Silva. And sir, thank you for your service, for your service, for your service, for your service. We see 4 Purple Hearts. There you go. We got them all. Thank you for your years of service to all of you. My question, and thank you for bringing this bill. There's not enough that we can do to show appreciation for the Purple Hearts and their families. My question is, would this be, you gave us, and I appreciate the amendment as well, there's some time limits in there for spouses or for children. Now, when this becomes, should we pass this and the governor signs it, is there a retroactive piece to this as well for maybe a Purple Heart, a family member child who maybe didn't have the opportunity, but they may run up against that? 10 years, have you thought about that?
Yes, thank you for the question, Assemblywoman. So no, as the way the way this bill is written, it wouldn't. You know, this is a conversation that has come up, but we just couldn't get there. It would be a considerable extension of a benefit, and we believed as a cohort here that this would be the appropriate right step at this moment. So it unfortunately is not retroactive to those veterans who fought in Vietnam or World War II. This is it really is the way the language is written, is capped at the age of 28, and it would mostly benefit veterans who fought in Iraq and Afghanistan, and some potentially during the Gulf War. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
Next, we will go to Assemblywoman Thomas.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you, Assemblyman De Silva, for bringing this forward. And thank you, sir, for your service. And, I know that we say that a lot and it's kind of hollow, but I hope that you understand that it's not hollow coming from me. It really is. Thank you. I'll preface with my service. Also retired United States Air Force, and Dad, who also served our country during Vietnam. And like you, he still can get in his uniform. It's just one of those things you guys do. But my question actually has to do with, just in case anyone out there is asking about Gold Star families, why this bill doesn't address that. I think that just for the record, if you can explain why Gold Star family members were not included in this one. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for the question, Assemblywoman. We already have language in place in our NRS that actually does cover the Gold Star families. We have the the Gunnery Sergeant Fry Scholarship, which is a benefit now for the children of Gold Star families. Gold Star family, by the way, is our family members who were affected by an actual service member who was killed in the line of duty. So we do have that in place. We also have federal dollars that are in place to help those children as well. So this language is particularly looking at that gap there. So as I mentioned in the presentation, a Purple Heart is bestowed to not just wounded vets but also veterans who are killed in combat. We do have a benefit packages in place for those children of service members who were killed in combat. This is actually looking at extending that to those who are wounded, but who don't receive the Gold Star benefits. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll go to Assemblyman Koenig.
Madam Chair, which your permission, I believe Mr. Lepelbit wanted to add to that.
I apologize.
I'm sorry.
Andrew Lepelbit for the record, Chair. Assemblywoman Thomas, the fact is that a Gold Star family, most of them are actually Purple Heart recipients of that fallen soldier, airman, Marine, sailor. So they are, as a result of being killed in action and service and making that family a Gold Star family, there is a Purple Heart that's awarded to, I guess, nearly all of them. Nearly all of them. So they are covered under the Purple Heart.
Thank you. And now we'll go to Assemblyman Koenig.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Assemblyman De Silva, for bringing this forward. My father served in Vietnam, never received a physical wound, but it stayed with him the rest of his life. So I think anything we can do with these families is great. And this question, I don't want to diminish anyone at all, but I'm kind of a numbers guy. And can you just tell me how many Purple Heart members there are in this state? And just for my own curiosity, I don't really even have a concept of how many people we're talking about. So,
For the record, Andrew Lepelbit, we've been working on that question for the last 12 years. And the best estimate, having worked with the Department of Veteran Services, the DMV, and all the records that we've pulled together, the estimate is that there's 5,000, maybe 5,800 in the state, of which about 90%, 85 to 90% of those are my era, in fact, Vietnam vets. So the vast majority of them are a bunch of old guys and gals from Vietnam. But it's generally in the 5,000 to 5,800 is the best estimate we've been able to come up with. And a lot of that's connected to the records that exist, because it's not a reportable thing. There's no master list somewhere. But we have almost 1,800 license plates that are Purple Heart license plates through the DMV and several other record-keeping elements in the Nevada Department of Veteran Services.
And just to add to that, Assemblyman, so that's very true. As Mr. LaPelbit mentioned here, we believe that the number is around 5,000 to 6,000. When I asked for the data from the Nevada Department of Veteran Services, they could find out only about 1,000 in the state, primarily most of them being in Clark County, about 660, I believe, identified Purple Heart recipients in Clark County. But we know that that doesn't match with the actual records. I mean, the DMV is telling a different story. And if you look at just the overarching statistics in this state, Nevada is one of the states that has the highest veterans ratio, anywhere from about 8 to maybe 10%.
7th in the country.
Yeah, 7th in the country in terms of the veterans population. So we believe that there is a larger amount of Purple Heart recipients than just what the 1,000 number that's provided by the Nevada Department of Veteran Services. And also, I think this idea of eras is important in this conversation, especially with this with the amendment now defining an age cap. So just to put things into perspective, when during World War II, the U.S. government awarded about 1 million Purple Hearts, a little bit more than 1 million. 1 million killed or wounded in action. Vietnam, the number is roughly about 350,000. In the Korean War, we're looking at about 118 to 120,000. And the Gulf War, about 1,000, I believe, 1,000. And the global war on terrorism, that number has actually gone up since the Gulf War to 50,000, we believe. That number is rising because many of these Purple Heart petitions are still being adjudicated. And we are now even incorporating into this into this award TBIs, traumatic brain injuries, which also qualify you for the benefit. So again, we believe that number is going to increase as these petitions are being heard and as people are applying for their combat wounded benefits. So again, that is a number that is in flux, and I'm glad that you asked that question to clarify the numbers there, Assemblyman. Thank you.
Assemblywoman Anderson.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for bringing it forward. And again, I want to echo my peers who have thanked you all for your service. My question has to do with a little bit of the amendment, but more importantly also with the other language. In particular, on page 3, line 31, and then again on page 4, line 17, where it very specifically says children. And yet in the amendment, it also is including spouses. Yes. Is there a reason why the spouses were not included in the other language?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for the question there, Assemblywoman. Ruben De Silva, for the record. I know I should have been saying that, but the amendment that you have in front of you is actually is not the right amendment. I think, do we have the proper amendment? Yes. I think we do. Yeah, that was an actual amendment from a different NSHE document, but we have the proper amendment in front of you, and that I think it's a good question. I think we should consider the extending the benefits to the spouses as well. That's hopefully a conversation that we can have with NSHE. That could actually be done with the Board of Regents, I believe. I know there's been several other extensions of benefits, veterans-based benefits in other states, where the board has actually added that benefit to spouses of veterans. There's a bill currently going through the Assembly now that's also dealing with a similar sort of issue. But I think we should definitely look into extending the benefits to spouses as well.
Thank you, Chair, for allowing me the time, and thank you for being open to allowing the spouses to also be considered as we continue to change the look of our armed forces. I think it's important for everybody to be included.
Next, we'll go to Assemblywoman Moscow.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for this. As a spouse, I appreciate that, with the question from the Assemblywoman, and I appreciate this so much. Just a quick one would be, I'm trying to understand just for the record, is the cap for because we want to make sure we're hitting a certain generation, or is it so that the benefit's not extending so much, or if you're just conduct about the cap of 28?
Jose Quiroga, for the record. The cap goes to 2 points. One being, and that would be, of course, up to the sponsor of the bill, or trying to define the population that you're trying to serve, correct? Of being recent dependents of service members who received a Purple Heart. But it also is in order to introduce that consistency. We're looking to introduce consistency of how dependent beneficiaries of fee waivers are treated across fee waivers. And we propose this wording, and in the paper that you have in front of you today, it would be beginning with a child may use a fee waiver or fee waiver granted pursuant to this section. I believe that is the wording that you have in front of you. And that would be the exact wording that of how dependents of prisoners of war and service members missing in action are currently treated.
Yeah, and to add to that a little bit, I think we were still working with NG, in regards to what the final language will be in the amendment. And there's something important to consider over here too. Even with this this newer generation, the global war on terrorism, the heaviest fighting that we saw during this time frame was really between the years 2004 to 2008-9. The surge was a part of this. The first and second battles of Fallujah. It's the heaviest fighting we've seen since the Vietnam era. And say if you had a child that was 8 years old, 9 years old, waiting for you back home, and you were serving in combat during this time, that child is either aged out or is going to be aged out here soon. So that is a conversation we do want to continue having with NG to see if we can maybe put a sunset clause on the age and then remain consistent from there on out. But we are definitely looking at some of the data we have, and we want to try to benefit as many families as possible through the passage of this bill. So thank you for the question, Assemblywoman.
Thank you, members. Any other questions? Not. Oh. Of course she does. Assemblywoman Anderson.
Thank you, Chair. I don't see the newest amendment, and maybe that's just me. So, is it on Nellis? Because it's still the same one that says. Okay, great. Never mind. Just ignore. Thank you.
Please.
Thank you. I had forgotten to say that I'd like to appear on this. You have other veterans that are on here, and you forgot me. So I'd appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Assemblywoman, I thought we had you here.
Is this it?
Okay. We'll make sure that you're on this then. Actually, no. Yeah. Assemblywoman, you are on there. Yep, we got you. We got you.
Wah, wah.
Right there.
Follow-up, Chair. Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
And the amendment is being passed out. Okay. Members, we're good? Okay, thank you. You can sit back and we will open it up to testimony and support.
Hi, my name is Kalen Evans. That's CALENEVANS, and I'm the president of the Washoe Education Association. We represent the certified professionals in the Washoe County School District. I'm here to speak in strong support of AB 279. On a personal level, my stepbrother was a wounded vet, served in Afghanistan and Iraq. My grandfather also served in the Air Force, and my great-grandfather was a Marine. And so the service industry is very strong in my family. Any opportunities for us to better support our veterans in our state, I think, is something that we need to champion. So we fully support this bill. Thank you.
Madam Chair and Committee, my name is Lynn Chapman, and I'm a 48-year member of the American Legion Auxiliary Doobie Reed Unit 30 in Sparks, Nevada. My dad was a World War II vet, and I started thinking about it, and I even have a great-great-grandfather that was in the Civil War. So anyway, I'm a 10 times past president of the American Legion Auxiliary as well. So I've known quite a few military families and their kids, and I would like to say that I've come in contact with them over many years. The families that I know had a difficult time trying to afford a college education for their kids. And I think that our military families have sacrificed so much that this bill would hopefully encourage the children of Purple Heart recipients to achieve their goals in life. And so I think we should support the military families and pass this bill, AB 279. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Michael Flores, for the record, on behalf of the University of Nevada, Reno, in our Office of Veteran Services, we are in strong support of AB 279. I want to thank the sponsor, Assemblyman De Silva, not only for his service, but for bringing this bill forward. I've known Mr. De Silva since the 4th grade, and he's been a friend ever since, and just to see his service, not just for our country, but for our community, is truly inspiring, and so proud to support this bill. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else in Vegas wanted to come up? All right, here. Yes, see, you got me doing that. Carson City. I'm dreaming of home.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, Constance Brooks representing University of Nevada, Las Vegas. We thank Assemblyman De Silva for his collaborative efforts in including the UNLV Military and Veteran Services Center and our Executive Director, Ross Bryant. We thank him also for his inclusion and for being a leader and champion for veterans throughout this state, not just for our campus, but throughout the state and throughout the system. We are in strong support of this legislation and are proud to report that last month UNLV was named one of the nation's top 10 friendly veteran campuses, and we're quite proud of the services and the support that we provide our students. We appreciate this legislation to help augment what we can do for them. Thank you.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, Francisco Morales here on behalf of the Latin Chamber of Commerce, also in very strong support of this bill. I have not known Mr. De Silva, Assemblyman De Silva, since 4th grade, but we've been friends for a long time, and I went to high school with his brother, played soccer together, and just so thankful for his service and the service of every one of you who are here, and Assemblywoman Thomas. Anything we can do to help support these families that gave so much for our country is what this bill is intended to do, and the Latin Chamber is in strong support of that. So we urge your support. Thank you.
Madam Chair and members of the Assembly Committee on Education, Anthony Ruiz with Nevada State College. We too are in strong support of this bill. We're happy to support the initial waiver for the Purple Heart recipients last time. We know that there are broader conversations around some of the costs of these waivers, and we know those are ongoing, but we see no reason to not support the extension of this waiver to the children's of Purple Heart recipients. So we're in strong support and urge your support as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in Carson City? Anyone in Las Vegas wishing to provide support? Anyone on the phone lines, BPS, wishing to provide support?
Callers, if you would like to testify in support of AB 279, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. One moment, Chair. Caller with the last 3 digits, 158, please go ahead.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. Mikey Kelly, State Director for the Nevada for the DNC Veterans and Military Families Council and Chairman of the Nevada Democratic Veterans and Military Families Caucus. I am testifying in support of this legislation, echoing everything everyone has said. I applaud Assemblyman De Silva, who is a member of this caucus, for putting this bill forth, and we look forward to seeing it implemented in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. BPS, anyone else on the line?
Chair, there are no more callers choosing to testify in support at this time.
Thank you. With that, we will open it up to opposition. Anyone in Carson City in opposition? Anyone in Las Vegas in opposition? BPS, anyone on the phone lines in opposition?
Callers, if you would like to testify in opposition to AB 279, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no callers choosing to provide opposition testimony at this time.
Thank you. Lastly, we'll open it up to neutral testimony. Is there anyone here in Carson City in neutral? Anyone in Las Vegas in neutral? Anyone on the phone lines in neutral?
Callers, if you would like to testify in neutral for AB 279, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no callers choosing to provide neutral testimony at this time.
I'll invite the presenters back up to the table. Closing remarks.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, members of the most awesome, most excellent, most amazing Education Committee for hearing us out and hearing our bill presentation. I want to thank my co-presenters, Mr. Jose Quiroga from NSHE, Mr. Andy Lepelbit from the Military Order of the Purple Heart. And I again want to say thank you for your service and sacrifice to this country. It is a true honor having you here in our presence. And also Mr. Ross Bryant, the director of the UNLV Veteran Services Center in Las Vegas. Again, I urge quick passage from this committee, and thank you for your support. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And with that, we will close the hearing on Assembly Bill 279. And we will open our final hearing on Assembly Bill 323. This measure revises provisions relating to education. To present this measure, we have Assemblywoman Torres, who has a co-presenter, I believe, in Las Vegas, that you will introduce. Assemblywoman Torres, please begin when you're ready.
Thank you, and good afternoon, Chair Bilbray Axelrod, Vice Chair Taylor, and members of the Assembly Committee on Education. I am Assemblywoman Selena Torres, and I proudly represent Assembly District 3 in the heart of Las Vegas, Nevada. Thank you for the opportunity to present AB 323 today, which at its core aims to build the next generation of Nevada educators and ensure all young Nevadans are afforded a right to a high-quality education. All of us in this room are acutely aware our state faces a critical shortage of educators in our children. Even more dire is the lack of teachers that look and share the same lived experiences of the students that they serve. AB 323 works to meet this challenge head-on by coordinating existing state resources and making regulatory changes to make the teaching profession more accessible while preserving a high-quality professional standards. This bill has three key components. First is it eliminates the barriers to licensing for educators. Two, it gives permissive language for schools to pay student teachers. And lastly, it requires that the Nevada Department of Education and NSHE develop a plan to expand awareness and eliminate barriers to eligible applicants for the Teacher Pathway Scholarship Program. At this time, I will hand it over to Dr. Michelle Cruz Crawford, a principal in Southern Nevada and a regent, before I walk through the amendment.
Dr. Michelle Cruz Crawford for the record. Thank you so much, Chair Bilbray Axelrod and Vice Chair Angie Taylor and the wonderful Committee on Education. I am here today to talk about some components of the bill. This is actually about 8 years in the works, and I think this is the first and only time I can probably say I'm actually a subject matter expert. I recently obtained my doctorate last month with a dissertation titled Increasing Teacher Diversity Through Pathways. So I conducted some research and delve into all the most current research for that. So basically, over the past 8 years, I've been trying to close that gap on diversity teacher pathways, both within the state of Nevada by identifying barriers and closing them. And I actually do a similar thing. I am an officer with the Nevada National Guard, and we close gaps within all levels to make sure that our state demographics meet our enlisted and officer demographics. So the first part of the bill that I wanted to discuss is, and I'm just going to share some antecedent evidence and some stories for that. I also have some research, is that 1.8 talks about developing a strategic plan for recruitment of teachers by specifically looking at the translation of academic transcripts in languages other than English. So we actually have something similar in place of that. But I wanted to share a story. About 8 years ago, when I first came to my school that is in East Las Vegas as the administrator, we had a paraprofessional in the pre-K program. And about 3 years into leading her as administrator, and I was working on paraprofessional pathways, she came to me and she's like, I have my teaching degree in Columbia. And I was like, what? You have your teaching degree in Columbia? She said, yes, I do, but I can't teach her because they will not accept my student teaching that I did in Columbia. And so I quickly sat down and looked at her transcripts with her. I called Nevada Department of Education and worked with an analyst to identify that that student teaching did translate to student teaching, meeting the department's needs. And so my biggest takeaway from this is that there's a lot of subjective looking at transcripts, and a lot of our future teachers from other countries do not have the complicated understanding of the regulations within the Nevada Department of Education and looking at transcripts. And I don't know if our analysts do either. So I think this plan is going to help. If I wouldn't have been able to sit down with her and look at that, she would have never, ever become a licensed teacher because she could not afford to retake those 12 credits or take that time off of work. The next section I want to talk about is really the meat of the work that I've been doing. Over the last 5 years, I conducted a study within the state to identify paraprofessional licensure barriers for diverse staff and first-generation college students. In Section 3, it talks about if our teachers, future teachers, could not pass the praxis, that they would be able to take a course equivalency and get a B or better. So basically, it's a pathway of either praxis, and if they cannot pass that, they would take a course equivalency. And before I start talking on that, I want to say in June of 2018, this was already a regulation that we had within the Nevada Department of Education. So the language removed on July 26 of 2018 was, after not passing the test described in subparagraph 1, the applicant, an applicant with a grade B or better of a course study in that I think I'm missing some of the pieces. But basically, the language we're reinstating is the language that we've already had. So what has happened since 2018 till now? Now it's only praxis passing that can get our teachers licensed. That's really stopping a lot of our diversity from moving forward. Right now, only 38% of Black candidates and 57% of Hispanic candidates ever pass the praxis exam, compared to 75% of candidates. And that comes from the National Council on Teacher Quality. We estimate, or Nevada Center of Teacher Quality estimates, that about 8,600 candidates of color are unable to enter the classroom because of the license barrier. The teaching profession is about 80% white right now nationally, and the majority of the student population is not close to that. So one of the things, as I've been doing this research, one of the biggest concerns is, are we lowering the bar? So we have found that students perform better on their proficiency exams when they have a teacher of color. So what we are doing is we're creating basically a dangerous cycle by creating barriers to teachers of color and having teachers that do not represent their ethnicity. So if we want to raise the bar, we really need to make sure that we are diversifying our teacher pipeline. I am going to add one last thing because I want to make this brief, But if we're looking at states that surround Nevada, there are currently 20 states that, that do not require the basic skills test that we do in Nevada. 4 of those states are ranked in the top 10 nationally. 4 of those states do not require 4 of the states that do not require the praxis border Nevada, including Nevada, Utah, Idaho, and Oregon. California offers alternative courses in lieu of praxis, and Nevada is really on an island with its requirements. Thank you for your time, and I'll be here for any questions.
Thank you, Assemblywoman Selena Torres, for the record, and thank you, Dr. Cruz Crawford, for making sure that we kind of understand the need for this piece of legislation. I'm now going to review the specifics of the bill as amended. As a reminder to the committee, although I know you all have seen how I do my amendments before, on the amendment is on the left side, and the explanation includes the language as amended as well as the other language in that section. It's kind of a quick summary and reference for you all. So Section 1 requires NDE to create a plan for decreasing the processing time for education licensure and renewal. This is a complaint that I have heard time and time again from educators. This requires the department to create a plan to decrease that processing time. Additionally, it requires NDE to post transcript translation process to the website. My understanding in conversation with the Nevada Department of Education is that the process already exists. That being said, before session started, I met with all of the principals in my district, and one of the concerns that they had specifically was the fact that they had staff members that had difficulty getting their transcripts translated and that would otherwise be able to work as teachers on our campuses, but instead had other education roles, sometimes just working as custodians on their campus because of the difficulty having that transcript translated. Section 2 will be removed as it is unnecessary, as the Nevada Department of Education is currently providing the regulations for the family engagement class. Section 3, I'm going to go ahead and go through what it does, and then I'll talk about the amendment. So it requires NDE to create an alternative to the Praxis 1 exam, which is a requirement that covers the core. So it's going to be your ELA, it's English, writing, math. There might be one more part. But the Praxis 1 is just kind of that general competency exam. And that actually aligns with the working group's recommendations during the interim. There was a working group from the Nevada Department of Education. And they looked into the Praxis 1, and this is one of the recommendations that they had, as well as to create alternatives, which is what many other states are already doing. Additionally, it requires the commission to study the importance of the Praxis 2 and pedagogy tests. So for those of you that are not educators, I'm going to just explain the amount of the testing that we have to do to become teachers. So the Praxis 1 is just testing our basic, it's almost like a basic knowledge test. And unfortunately, like when you look at this basic knowledge test, there are significant barriers. Many teachers take this over and over and over again. The thing that I think is important to know about this test is it is not aligned with the standards that we're teaching. You can be a pre-K teacher, and if you struggle to pass the math or the writing, my sister is dyslexic and had a hard time. I don't know that she appreciates that for the record, but my sister is dyslexic and she had a difficult time passing the writing praxis. And you know, she had to take it multiple times in order to pass that. And that has nothing to do with her job or her ability to teach science. She's a phenomenal science educator, and I think that was a unnecessary barrier for her. Then there's also the Praxis 2. The Praxis 2 is looking specifically at like the subject area. So for example, I'm an English teacher, so I took the English subject text, the Praxis 2. Now I can tell you without a doubt that Praxis does not demonstrate that I'm a quality English teacher. And the reason I say that is because what that Praxis does is it gives you it gives you a passage and it tells you, name the author. Now let me tell you, there is not one single time I have ever done that in an English class with my students. That would not be good teaching, and it is not aligned to the Common Core standards that we teach. But that's the Praxis 2. And lastly is the pedagogy test. Quite honestly, the pedagogy test gives you, similarly, it gives you like a concept, and it tells you to name the theorist, the education theorist behind this. Is this behaviorism? What's the name of the theory? And then it does have some lesson planning components at the end. This all being said, I do think that, you know, regarding the Praxis 1, I think that we have enough evidence here in the state of Nevada, and the working group has already looked at creating alternatives to the Praxis 1. I understand, you know, Praxis 2 and pedagogy tests, we haven't had those conversations. So I would like for those conversations to take place during the interim. So the amendment requires that The Nevada Department of Education study the Praxis 2 and the pedagogy test, grant authority to the commission to make changes or regulations upon the termination of the study as appropriate. And by the end of February 2025, the commission must present the recommendations to legislative committees. It should be on education, or for presentation to the education committee. I apologize. I noticed that it needed. But to present to this body so that we can have those recommendations and really take a look at that, because I do think we're going to have a similar conversation in 2 years. Section 4 ensures that currently students that are waiting for degrees to confer cannot receive their education license. So how this works, because this is also very technical, is that, I graduated from a university in a different state. I'm waiting for my degree to confer, which can take about 2 to 3 months, depending on the institution. I've already graduated. My university will tell you that I have fulfilled my requirements for graduation, but the degree does not say conferred. So now I cannot yet start teaching in the state because I can't prove that that degree has conferred. Now, there are exceptions here in the state of Nevada for NCHE, because NCHE automatically talks to NDE, so there's like a communication between those two systems. So NCHE grads can immediately start teaching here in the state of Nevada, but students from other states are having barriers. My understanding is that there are some regs that have been helpful in making sure that those graduates are able to immediately start teaching, but it really is discretionary, and so we want to put it into statute that those teachers would have access to a provisional license, which would require them to still get in those transcripts that demonstrate that their degree has conferred. This requires them to create that process. I'm not saying how they have to do it, but this allows for NDE to create that process. Additionally, it gives in Section 5, it gives permissive language for student teachers to be paid. As an educator who has had many student teachers, unfortunately, student teachers are not able to be paid during their experience. This is an unpaid internship. Unfortunately, many colleges of education continue to tell their students that they cannot have a job and student teach. I'll tell you, that's actually why I did an alternative route to licensure, because I was told that if I did the teaching program, and I would have been 1 semester away from a bachelor's in education, if I did the teaching program, I would not be able to work and go to school. And that's just not that's not the reality for many students today. It's not the reality for first-gen students. It's not the reality for largely the community of color and future educators. Many of us work and go to school. That's just the reality. Additionally, I think there's room for us to create incentive programs. This is permissive language. It's not requiring districts to pay their student teachers, but it is saying this might be an option. And I do think that this could be a recruitment strategy. I have spoken with some schools that are very interested in this option. Nonetheless, there continue to be barriers, and so I think that this would be very helpful. The amendment does, because it doesn't currently, I believe, as written, it applies to teachers, counselors, and administrators, but this would expand to include student social workers too, or social workers working in the school. Section 6 requires school districts to provide teachers with a family engagement course at no cost to the teacher. Currently, educators that are required to take this course for licensure and are usually required to pay for the course themselves, although there is some permissive language in the regs. I'm saying that it has to be available at no cost to that teacher. When I first started teaching, there was an elderly teacher who had taught. He had retired from New York public schools. He taught for over 30 years in New York public schools. Unfortunately, when he came to Nevada, he had to pay for this college class so that he could take this class in family engagement. Additionally, I do think it does a better service to our teachers to have those family engagement courses within your community, because many of the teachers I know that took this course took them from other institutions like Southern Utah University, and really what ends up happening with that is that they don't understand family engagement, that we're not providing them the education for family engagement in the community that they're serving. I really think that the intent of this original legislation is to make sure that educators understand that the community they are working with and the community that they are serving. And I do believe that providing this at no cost to the teacher, one, it ensures that the teachers have access to that training and that it's not an additional barrier to licensure. But two, I do think that this will ensure that teachers better understand the communities that they serve. Section 7 and Section 8 are conforming changes. Section 9 and Section 10 will be removed. I understand that there is a bill in the Senate that deals with this topic, and so I'm not trying to compete on the work that this other working group has done. So I'm removing Section 9 and 10. I am adding a new section that requires that NDE and NCHE develop a plan to expand awareness and eliminate barriers for the Teacher Pathway Scholarship programs, and require that the departments present to the Interim Committee of Education 2024. This legislative body has made phenomenal advancements to ensure that our teachers, our future teachers, have access to scholarships and grants that will make sure that they get through these education programs. That all being said, I have had multiple student teachers since last legislative cycle, and none of them knew about any of the programs that we had, and that was very disappointing. We have to do something. The fact that I'm the one telling them, it shouldn't have to come directly from a legislator for our students to know. I think that there's a lot of work that we can do to make sure that more of our students have access, and unfortunately there were unused funds last cycle, and so this will hopefully help make sure that there is a plan and that we're developing a strategy to expanding that. There is no changes to Section 11, but essentially it implements the bill upon passage of regulation and by July 1st, 2024 for all other purposes. At this time, I am ready for any questions.
With Vice Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Oh, excuse me. And thank you to my colleague, the Assemblywoman. Thank you for bringing this forward. I have a couple of questions, if I may, Madam Chair. The first is you just spoke about the family engagement course. Is that course offered by the districts? Did I understand that correctly?
Assemblyman Selena Torres for the record. So my understanding of the regulations is currently the regulations do allow for them to provide that course. Unfortunately, though, I think that there are many districts that are not currently providing it, so this would require that it is available at no cost.
Okay, so then if I may follow up on that, so really, for the use example that you gave, if that district didn't provide, it was in Clark, didn't provide that training, then that teacher from New York would have had to find some other place to get that training and then pay for the course and so on, where a district itself could offer that training, or a district could partner, really, like if there are smaller districts and so on.
Assemblyman Selena Torres for the record. Yeah, 100%. So in my conversation, in my conversations with educators, I have heard of no one who received this training that they didn't have to pay for it. Every educator that I know has had to pay for this training themselves. So this would require that training is available at no cost to them. Additionally, in my conversation with the Nevada Department of Education, they did state that they would be able to partner. That we wanted to make sure that there's permissive language for them to partner with a regional professional development provider, which is our PDP.
Okay, thank you very much. My second question, and again, thank you, Madam Chair, is can you provide your co-presenter, and congratulations on your PhD, by the way, great job, mentioned that a very similar passage that really removed the requirement for the practice and allowed there to be a test, that it was removed in 2018. And so it got me thinking that what's the history? Can you give us a little bit more history? Provide the history a little bit more on the information. Give us more information and history on the teacher licensure in our state. I didn't know it was in there and taken out. That's curious to me.
Yes, thank you. Someone Selena Torres for the record. So there used to be alternatives to the praxis. Unfortunately, I went through regulation, and if I'm being abundantly honest, I think that's probably something that wasn't noticed by the board at the time, that they didn't see a reason for us to have an alternative for the praxis. Maybe it wasn't being used frequently, or there wasn't a large group of people coming out to say that this is something that we need. I don't know that there's very strong lobbyists for educators pushing for removing teacher licensure. That's not really a client that anybody would have. But I think building off of that, I think it's important for us to look at the history of teacher licensure exams. With the ruling of Brown versus Board of Education, 1954, segregation in the classroom was overturned. Unfortunately, there was never a requirement for us to integrate teaching forces. So across the nation, many black educators were immediately fired in order to undermine the integration efforts. While white school boards, superintendents, and legislators designed new barriers to prevent black educators from being placed in the newly desegregated schools. Unfortunately, teacher licensure exams were a part of that. So tests like the praxis. These examinations, under the guise of testing the competency of black educators, were an intentional tool to retain an exclusivity to the teaching profession. And in this legacy that we still live with, it's a legacy that we hope to correct with this bill. Unfortunately, I do think that with the passing of with the implementation of teaching licensure exams, the exams did exactly what they were then intended to do, and that was to prevent black and brown educators from becoming teachers.
I appreciate that bit of history. Thank you so much. Thank you, Madam Chair.
And actually, we're going to go to our counsel who is going to go over that reg.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Asher Killian, Community Council. So the regulation that was referenced is R 04817. It was a regulation of the Commission on Professional Standards in Education. It was ultimately approved by the Legislative Commission on June 26, 2018. It amended NAC 391-036, which contained those testing requirements. Before the regulation, either the pre-professional skills test administered by Educational Testing Service or the California Basic Educational Skills Test prepared by the California Commission on Teacher Credentialing was required, or alternatively an applicant could show evidence that they had received a master's or more advanced degree which required passage of the GRE. It also allowed alternatives for having received an undergraduate degree with at least a 3.0 GPA and certain minimum scores on the GRE, or not passing the pre-professional skills test and receiving at least a grade of B or better in the relevant coursework. What the regulation did was eliminate the options to receive an undergraduate degree and receive a satisfactory score on the GRE, or to complete coursework receiving a grade of B or better, as well as eliminating the ability to take and pass the California Basic Educational Skills Test.
Okay, thank you for that. Next question will go to Assemblywoman Hanson.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Assemblywoman Torres. I appreciate this bill greatly. I'm not an educator, but I certainly am aware of the pipeline issue that we have, and I appreciate your efforts to try to help solve that issue. My question actually is for Ms. Cruz Crawford, and again, congratulations. Could you, I think it was you that said that 4 of the top 10 schools in the nation don't require the praxis exam. I was curious if you could tell us what states those are.
Assemblywoman Hanson, I'll probably need about 5 minutes. If not, I'll send it to Assemblywoman Torres to share with the committee.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you. If you could do that, it'd be nice to get that on the record. And I thought I had another question, but it's not coming to mind. So maybe I'll do a follow-up later. Thank you.
All right, and we'll give you time to find that if you can. Next, we'll go to Assemblywoman Anderson.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for bringing forward this bill. Today is Maya Angelou's birthday, and I just feel like this is a phenomenal bill. Because in the words of Maya Angelou, one thing that she said at one point was, you may not control all the events that happen to you, but you can decide not to be reduced by them. So thank you for not allowing our profession to be reduced by them, by bringing forward some of this language. It's wonderful. I do have 2 questions that are very specific to language that's being proposed. The first set is on page 8, where the language of may is still present, but I believe in the information on your chart, it's on may compensate the student teaching assigned, or including the social worker. On line 26, it still says may. And so I didn't know if you were speaking in that way of having that shall. And then also on that same page, line 36 and 42, this has to do with the training. And again, that says may. But I believe in your conceptual amendment, I believe you wanted those to be shall, but I just wanted to make sure that I was understanding that correctly.
So I'm sorry for the record. Can you clarify the part 2 of the question? I don't know what page number.
No problem. It's page 8, it's section 5.
That's the first part. Can you do the second part?
And then the second part is also page 8. It's in section 6, lines 36 and 42.
Assemblywoman Salinas Torres for the record. So the may on page 8 is definitely intentional because it's permissive language for the districts to pay the student teachers. Unfortunately, there have been, so for example, some public charter schools have actually asked to pay student teachers as an incentive to keep their teachers there. And, I think that's something that we could be doing as as larger districts as well, especially given that, some of us larger districts have hundreds of vacancies every single year. Unfortunately, that's not something that's being done. And so this is permissive language for us to do that. And I think that this could allow for advocates and supporters to push for us to be expanding that paid student teaching. And so this is really an opportunity for them to do so. I also think, there were missed opportunities when we were receiving federal funds that we could have been investing in those programs. I think it was on Friday during the hearings for the Washoe County and Clark County, we talked about some of the ways that, districts were using ARP and ESSER funds and putting them into teacher programs. I think you could have more appropriately put them into paid student teaching options within your districts, and that could have been very helpful in helping getting teachers across the finish line, but then hopefully recruiting them and retaining them. So I think that really is a missed strategy for us as a state. And then going on to Section 6 of the bill, which has to do with family engagement, the amendment does address that, so it requires the school districts to provide the teachers with family engagement course at no cost, so it's eliminating that permissive language and requiring the school districts to do so.
Thank you so much for that clarification. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And next we will go to Assemblyman De Silva.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you, Assemblywoman, for bringing this bill forward. This is an excellent, excellent bill. I want to commend you on this. I was meeting with teachers this past weekend, and they brought up every single one of these issues. This is an omnibus bill that covers so much that what we need to cover moving into this next school year. And my question was particularly focused on the compensation now for the student teachers. As well. So what do you imagine that to be? Would that be something like an hourly rate that some of the districts have already contractually expressed, or would it be a stipend? What would be like your vision on the sort of a payment that we would have for student teachers?
Assemblyman Selena Torres for the record. So thank you for that question. And honestly, the reality is I think that I'm a big supporter of paid internships because I think that's how you give people opportunities to programs and situations that they wouldn't have otherwise. I know that I can't be the only educator that chose to have an alternative route to licensure, maybe chose not to become a teacher because programs were saying you cannot be paid while student teaching. And yeah, you got to work 40 hours a week and more because you have to lesson plan outside of that time and grade. I know that I'm not the only person that was in that circumstance. That being said, any payment would be better than what the current system is, which is just we do not pay our student teachers. And the reality is, for those of you not in the profession, that student teachers are doing the bulk of the work. They might have a licensed teacher in there, although not necessarily all the time. They're running that classroom. They're working, I would say, doing kind of the equivalency to the work of a long-term sub, but they're not compensated for that time at all, and they're not able to be compensated for that time at all. And in my conversations with the colleges of education, I think that there is a change in thinking for how we recruit individuals to the profession. We shouldn't have to reduce ourselves or degrade the individuals in those programs. I think maybe 50 years ago, most of these individual teacher candidates were living at home with their parents, and they could go and do this. That all being said, that times have changed, and quite honestly, times were probably hard then too. I remember my mom student teaching. I was 6 years old, and I remember my mom student teaching and how hard it was for her to have to navigate that, and not having, with only one person working at home and having to figure out childcare and all of those. And so I think that this is going to make a significant difference for our future teachers.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Assemblywoman.
Any other questions, committee? Okay.
And then I don't know if Cruz Crawford.
Oh, she's raising her hand.
Dr. Cruz Crawford, for the record, I do have the 4 states. I do want to let you know I am a principal of a school in East Las Vegas, and I've been working through these paraprofessional pathways within leading from my own seat, and I have 0 openings this year, and I haven't had any openings for the past 8 years by doing these pathways. The 4 states that are ranked the highest, now they do go back and forth, but the 4 states that are ranked the highest that do not require the basic skills test or the praxis test is Connecticut, Massachusetts, Utah, and Washington. Thank you.
Okay, with that, we'll have you sit back and invite anyone up here who is in support. Fill up those chairs and begin when you're ready.
Thank you, Chair and the committee. I am Shelby Swartz, Shelbie, Swartz of Battleborn Progress, and a graduate of the Clark County School District. I am here in support of AB 323 because our school systems are hemorrhaging teachers, and with them, hemorrhaging years of talent and experience that our children so badly need. And for those teachers that do not leave, they are forced to grapple with a severe shortage of educators, making their workloads that much larger. Teachers are struggling. They are faced with a lack of resources, a lack of trust from their administration, and a lack of respect from the public. As of right now, not nearly enough is being done to keep our teachers in our schools and assist new teachers in entering the field, with confusing, costly, and prohibitive barriers to licensing. With AB 323, we can support our teachers by incentivizing new professionals to enter the field, alleviating the strain that they are facing, and giving our educators the support that they have been begging for. We can no longer leave these teachers out in the cold to shoulder the burden caused by restrictive licensing policies and a lack of incentives to join the profession. With this policy, we will attract much-needed diversity into our classrooms, and all of these things combined will help our kids learn. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair Bilbray Axelrod and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Nick Schneider, representing the Vegas Chamber. Quick thank you to Assemblywoman Torres for bringing this legislation forward. Education has historically been one of our top priorities, and the current teacher shortage has been a contributing factor to the state of education in Nevada. The Vegas Chamber is in support of AB 323 as it takes a multi-pronged approach to addressing this shortage. We also appreciate the added degree of accountability in requiring the superintendent to produce a strategic plan for recruitment, as well as streamlining the process to allow certain exemptions with defined qualifiers and certain proficiencies to open access to other qualified professionals. We urge your support of AB 323. Thank you for your time.
Dr. Kenneth Varner, Kennethvarner, Professor and Associate Dean for Education at UNLV's College of Education. We're thrilled to speak in support of this great bill from Assemblywoman Torres. I also direct the Nevada Educator Preparation Institute and Collaborative, and at UNLV, we are leading the way preparing paraprofessionals. Multiple hundreds of paraprofessionals in the last 2 years are going through our program, most of whom are first-generation students like myself, breaking cycles. I often use the metaphor to talk about this to think about Oz, and we tend to think of Dorothy going to Oz on a single pathway, and we never contemplate how the people of Oz got there, and it wasn't on the same pathway that Dorothy went. The way that Dorothy gets to teaching looks a lot different than how most people enter teaching now, and I think what's most important about this bill from our perspective and why we support it so strongly at UNLV is that on the various pathways, and pathways is important, it's plural, there are so many roadblocks to getting to the end, and this bill addresses significant roadblocks around testing, around how licensure is obtained, and in combination with several other bills that are happening on the Senate side, I think that we can enhance the quality of the preparation pathways along with reducing these barriers, and for those reasons, we strongly support this bill. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Kirsten Sear. I'm the president of the Public Education Foundation, and we are here in support of this bill, in strong support. We are speaking up on several teacher recruitment bills this session, and we don't typically speak out on policy, but we are that concerned about the teacher shortage crisis that our school districts are currently experiencing and the disproportionate impact on students in our most underserved communities. And so we are very pleased that this bill identifies many of the barriers that we and our colleagues have identified for all teaching prospects, especially potential teachers of color. We sat on the committee that Assemblywoman Torres mentioned, and so we were in strong support of the language around the praxis. I would also mention that there was a 2019 study from the Educational Testing Service that found that only 38% of potentially black or teachers who are identified as black ever pass the praxis test. 57% of Hispanic candidates pass the praxis test, and 75% of white candidates pass the praxis test after multiple attempts. And so there is clearly a problem with the praxis test and how it screens out potential teachers of color. And also want to back up what Assemblywoman Torres said, that research overwhelmingly suggests that students who have access to teachers of color together see improvements in a wide variety of academic and behavioral measurements. And so we are very much in support of this bill reducing barriers to people becoming teachers and also increasing collaboration between the Department of Education and NSHE on teacher pathways. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Mary Brzezinski, here representing Nevada Association of School Superintendents, an organization that's composed of all 17 superintendents in the state. We talk over and over again. You hear us talking about the teacher shortage. This bill has several things in it that are going to help us bring more teachers online and still not stop the quality of teacher that we have in the classroom. The praxis really didn't show whether you're going to be a good classroom teacher and work well with students, and I'm happy to see that change and several others. So we support the bill and thank the Assemblywoman for bringing it forward. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Kalen Evans, and I'm the president of the Washoe Education Association, and we represent the certified professionals in the Washoe County School District. We are here speaking in strong support of AB 323, and would like to thank the Assemblywoman for bringing this bill forth, and lawmakers on both sides of the aisle that are also sponsoring this bill. Staffing our schools is our most critical issue facing Nevada and must be a top priority of state leaders. There are two sides to this equation. First and foremost is our ability to retain the quality professionals we currently have in our schools. And we do that in part by making sure that we are able to provide competitive wages, reduce class size, and help support student behavior in the classroom and the mental well-being of our young people. The other side of this equation is our ability to attract new people into this amazing profession and remove the barriers. As was previously stated, there are many good things in this bill, and it's obvious that there was a lot of forethought, intention, and collaboration in this comprehensive bill. This bill helps address some of the unnecessary barriers that are hindering the ability for us to further recruit new educators. The barriers being eliminated in this bill, though, do not lower the bar to become an educator, but again, allows for much of the unnecessary red tape and barriers that gets in the way of getting qualified educators in the classroom as quickly as possible. Again, we would like to thank the Assemblywoman and all of you that are responsible for bringing this bill forth, and also to the other educational organizations and advocates in the state that are making teacher recruitment a top priority. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. For the record, Alejandro Rodriguez, Director of Government Relations for Nevada System of Higher Education, and she is in strong support of AB 323, and we really appreciate the work that Assemblywoman Torres is doing on this very important issue. And we'd also like to thank the great presentation from Dr. Cruz Crawford. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the Education Committee. For the record, my name is Stephen Horner, and I am the president of the Nevada State Education Association Retired Teachers and Support Professionals. I'm just going to say Me Too, but as one of the issues that was in this is paying for student teaching. And I also was told I could not work as I was doing student teaching. I did, however, because I had a family at the time, I had to work. I was a graveyard bartender. I worked Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And on those mornings that I had to substitute teach, I would go directly from the bar. And it would have been so much easier if I'd been able to have that pay. This is an important bill. It's an omnibus bill, I agree, but this is a very important bill, and I just want to say Me Too.
Madam Chair, Chris Daly, Nevada State Education Association, the voice of Nevada educators for over 120 years in support of AB 323. First of all, thank goodness Steve Horner got his teaching license. What a treasure for the state of Nevada. NSEA last session supported SB 352 to allow paraprofessionals seeking teaching credentials to complete an accelerated program of student teaching. In this bill, we are particularly excited about the provision to allow student teachers to receive compensation for that work, and also to make sure that in the amendment in Section 6, teachers have access to that professional development on family engagement at no cost to the teacher. That's been a barrier So while we focus most of our efforts and attention on retention, it's good that a strong bill like this is coming from Assemblymember Torres. Thanks for your work on this.
We're going to do you two here, and then we're going to go to Las Vegas.
Thank you, Chair and members of the committee. For the record, KB Mejia with the Ferrado Company on behalf of the Nevada Association of School Boards. NASB is in support of AB 323. We want to thank Assemblywoman Torres for bringing this bill forward, and ditto the comments of all of our colleagues. It is very important we do everything we can to recruit and retain high-quality teachers, and AB 323 is a great step towards that. Thank you for hearing this bill, and we urge your support.
Michael Flores, on behalf of the University of Nevada, Reno, would like to thank Assemblymember Torres, who is a proud graduate of UNR. And on behalf of the College of Education and Human Development, we are in strong support of this legislation. Thank you.
She is wearing red. Just saying. We'll go to Las Vegas. Vegas, if you have testimony and support, please begin.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Melina DiMaggio, and I'm the Immigrant Rights Program Manager with the Progressive Leadership Alliance of Nevada, and I'm also a member of the Nevada Immigrant Coalition, and I'm here in support of Assembly Bill 323. Nevada has long been facing an underfunded education system and consistent teacher shortages. AB 323 will help strengthen our education system by deconstructing these barriers to teaching and providing community-based family engagement training at no cost. In order to maintain quality education, teachers should be provided the resources that they need to address difficulties students face throughout their schooling. And students across the state of Nevada depend on public education for success in their futures, which is why establishing a pipeline of diverse teachers who represent the various backgrounds of their students is so critical. School integration practices like AB 323 will create more than just educational achievement among students. It's also going to contribute to the importance for children to connect their experiences, their backgrounds, and values in those that are providing them with these educational opportunities. The future of our children deserve to see educators that represent them, especially those that are coming from immigrant backgrounds, as it leaves such a positive impression for their success. I strongly ask the committee to support AB 323. Thank you.
Next person in Vegas.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Deanna Huatran. That's DEANNA space HUA space TRAN. And I am the Coalition Coordinator for the Nevada Immigrant Coalition, here on behalf of the Coalition in full support of AB 323. The Nevada Immigrant Coalition consists of diverse organizations from across the state that work together to fight for immigration reform and immigrant justice. Public education serves as one of the most effective interventions in reducing social immobility and mitigating poor economic and social outcomes. Success of our Nevada youth rely not only on the investment in our public school systems and teachers, but also the utilization of tailored approaches to address the distinctive deficits that some of our children face due to economic instability, cultural marginalization, and systemic neglect. It's important for our children to see their cultural identities and backgrounds represented in their teachers, and by broadening that pathway for educators who are able to increase cultural competencies in our classrooms. Our children and the next generations of learners to come deserve educators that promote representation, sensitivity, and a commitment to the unique needs of our immigrant children. We strongly ask for the committee to please support AB 323. Thank you for your time.
Buenas tardes, Chair Taylor, Assemblywoman Torres, and members of the Assembly Education Committee. My name is Fernando Romero. I am president of Hispanics in Politics and husband of a first-year teacher. I am here in support of AB 323. In all frankness, I am here with trepidation in my heart, concerned for fear of retaliation against my teacher wife by an administration that does not accept constructive criticism very lightly. I emphasize this is my testimony, not hers. After my wife graduated from UNLV as an elementary school teacher, August of 2022, she immediately applied for employment at CCSD. She goes without saying that due to the school district's approximate 2,000 teacher shortage, and due to the fact that she graduated summa cum laude, plus the fact that she served 7 years as a specialist teacher and ultimately supervisor for the Jobs for Nevada's Graduates, JAG, a highly respected education program that is inside a number of high schools here in Las Vegas and throughout the country. She received a number of offers from various elementary school principals. That was great. The fact that we live in the predominantly Latino populated Sunrise Manor area, and the fact that she was set on teaching in a school with predominance of children of color was great as well. The fact that she took unpaid leave from her job was not great. The fact that it took more than 2 months to be processed was shocking to me. Apparently, she already knew that it took a while. The fact that when she was with the JAG program, she taught largely students of color at Centennial, Valley, Rancho high schools, and supervising at 9 other schools, also with a large enrollment of students of color, was rewarding, for it gave her the opportunity to encourage students to pursue a college career in the field of education. It gave her the experience that otherwise she would not have had. It opened the door for the scholarship that she received from an innovative teacher program that UNLV made available. The fact that the CCSD has so many hoops to jump through for employment was frustrating. Luckily, she persevered. I am with those that say that teachers should be trained on family and community engagement practices in the school districts they teach in. AB 323 instructs districts to provide this kind of training at no charge, saving educators hundreds of dollars in the licensure process. I am in full support of AB 323. Muchas gracias.
De nada. Thank you for being here. We just have a few more minutes left, so we will go to the phone lines. BPS, do we have callers in support?
Callers, if you would like to testify in support of AB 323, please press star 9 to take your place in the queue. One moment, Chair. Caller with the last 3 digits, 386. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon. For the record, Rudy Zamora, Director of Public Affairs for Teach for America. Teach for America supports AB 323 with the proposed amendment and would like to thank Assemblywoman Torres for her leadership. AB 323 proposes various measures to tackle barriers to teachers in their classrooms, such as directing the licensing board to assess coursework and work experience that meet Nevada's teacher licensing requirements. It also expedites licensing for eligible students whose transcripts may be held up for various reasons. By streamlining the teacher licensing process, the Nevada Department of Education can help overcome one of the significant obstacles that contribute to the teacher shortage in the state. Far too often, we see promising teachers waiting on the sidelines as the first day of school starts, not because they're not ready to teach, but because of the complex, lengthy process of licensing. This can discourage them from pursuing a career in teaching. The measure proposed in AB 323 can eliminate some of the barriers and make the licensing process more accessible and efficient for aspiring teachers. We urge you to support AB 323, which will benefit both Nevadan students and teachers. Thank you for considering this critical legislation. Thank you.
Thank you for the call. BPS, next caller.
Chair, there are no more callers choosing to provide support testimony at this time.
Sorry, you caught me talking to someone. Okay, so we have no more callers, so we'll go to you here in Carson City.
No pressure. Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. Francisco Morales here on behalf of the Clark County Education Association in support of this bill. We thank Assemblywoman Torres for all the work that she has put into this bill and the thoughtful and practical steps that are contained in the bill to help ease the critical teacher shortage. We urge your expedient passage of this bill, and we thank you for the opportunity to testify. Thank you.
Next.
Thank you, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Eric Jang, ERICJNG, here as Acting Executive Director for One API Nevada. I'm here because we are advocating for Nevadans, Asian, and Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander working families. Studies after studies and meetings after meeting that we did with our community showed that there's 3 things that we can support our API students and families in our education system. The first one is data disaggregation. The second one is supporting our students with English language learner background and also mental health, which Assemblywoman Torres have addressed last session. And the third, and not least, is recruit, retain, and support Asian American teachers and also teachers with diverse background that would really help our students thrive and help understanding our families, our culture, and this bill addresses many barriers to achieve that. So thank you very much, and we urge for your support for this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, we will close support and open it to opposition. Do we have anyone here in Carson City in opposition? Not seeing anyone. Anyone in Las Vegas in opposition? Not seeing anyone. BPS, do we have anyone on the phone line in opposition?
Callers, if you would like to testify in opposition to AB 323, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no callers choosing to provide opposition testimony at this time.
Thank you. And with that, we will move to neutral. If you are in neutral of this bill, please come to the table in Carson City and in Las Vegas. Not seeing anyone in neutral. BPS, is there anyone on the phone line?
Callers, if you would like to provide neutral testimony, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no callers choosing to provide neutral testimony at this time.
Thank you. With that, I will call the bill sponsor back up to make final remarks.
Thank you, Chair Bilberry Axelrod and members of the amazing Committee on Education for allowing me to present this piece of legislation today. But also know that this is a piece of legislation that is very personal for me. As many of you know, I'm an educator, but what many of you probably don't know is I'm actually an instructional coach now. So I oversee a team of 20 ELA teachers at my school. And I have the honor to support and mentor these teachers. One of them was actually my mom, and many of them, and this is the next generation of educators. And there are far too many phenomenal future educators that experience these barriers, whether it be the translation of a transcript, access to paid student teaching opportunities, or difficulty overcoming and passing the praxis. In this committee, throughout this legislative cycle, we have had conversation after conversation about what do we do to improve student achievement? What do we do to keep our campuses safer? Having more teachers on our campuses all of the time is one of those solutions. My hope is that by beginning to work to eliminate these barriers to licensure for educators from the praxis to unpaid student teaching, we can collaboratively build a future where all students have a permanent, full-time educator in the classroom, where educators of color are more commonplace, and continue to improve educational outcomes for the betterment of our state. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And with that, I will close the hearing on AB 323, which brings us to our final agenda item, public comment. As a reminder, members of the public can provide public comment in person or telephonically. And you can also submit your public comment up to 24 hours after our meeting. Is there anyone here in Carson City wishing to make public comment? Anyone in Las Vegas wishing to make public comment? BPS, is there anyone on the phone lines wishing to make public comment?
Callers, if you would like to provide public comment, please press star 9 to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no callers choosing to provide public comment at this time.
Thank you, BPS. Okay, so our next meeting will be on Thursday, April 6th, at the call of the chair. So we will see you on Thursday. We're adjourned.